Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another installment of our God at Work series. I've enjoyed so much talking to members and friends, just checking in with people, seeing how their year's gone, seeing what's been difficult, seeing what they're hopeful about. So thanks those of you who continue to watch. We love to hear from you. So if you're watching, just drop us a note there in the comments. We'd love to know who from our church family and all over the world is watching these interviews. Tonight, I want to welcome our guest. This is Lynn and Joy McMillon. Welcome, Lynn and Joy. We're glad to have you on. So, I think just about everyone watching, at least if they're Memorial Road members, are going to know who you are. But for those who might not know, would you take just a minute and introduce yourselves to us?
Hi, well, we're Lynn and Joy McMillon. We've been members at the Memorial Road congregation for about 40 years. We are two sons and their lovely wives, and several of our grandchildren live in this area, and we love them very much. Lynn's taught at OC for many years, and I've been involved with the women's program for several years.
Okay. Well, let's talk about your year. Tell me what your life has been like since March.
Well, I would say that our lives have been pretty much like just about everybody else's lives, in that we've, felt a lot of restrictions that as time has gone on have become more and more difficult. But at the same time, if we stop and think about it, the Lord has blessed us in a lot of good ways too. It has, this all hit last spring. I was in the middle of teaching, and just as spring break came, the word about the lockdown and shutdown came. And over the weekend, as professors, I'm a professor at Oklahoma Christian, we had to switch to a virtual means of teaching using a software called Collaborate that is video like this. And so that was a big adjustment, but it was a good thing. It was good to have to learn something new. And it worked out all right to help us finish the semester, but it's never as good as being live in a classroom with students. But the Lord blessed us to be able to finish the semester.
Yes, I think I was living a pretty complacent life, my little comfortable, secure nest, lots of church activities, some physical exercise, that kind of thing. And I think in many ways, I think I wasn't very prepared for this drastic change that came about, something I never thought about. Our generation, we didn't go through a war here in our country. We've had some economic crises, but people seem to have come out of them, many of them at least. And so all of a sudden, we're looking at a crisis of incredible magnitude. And it was like this darkness descended upon us as we watched television, as we heard these updates. It was like, what is happening in this world right now? So I feel a sense of shock, and then a sense almost of denial.
Well, as much as you might feel comfortable sharing, have you or anyone close to you had COVID-19, experienced a loss from COVID-19?
We have not had COVID, but we have one granddaughter who had COVID. We have a number of friends from church who have had COVID. And we, of course, lost a couple of friends from church who had COVID. So the answer to your question is yes. And as time goes on, it seems like there are more.
And then in addition to the losses that are directly from COVID, the health and life losses that we all grieve, tell me about some other losses, loss of routine, loss of normalcy, loss of connection, those kinds of things. What other losses have you experienced during the pandemic?
Well, I think definitely this whole thing, suddenly with everything being canceled, it's like there's no structure to your day anymore. There's no structure to your week anymore. For a time, you're kind of wrestling with that. One day just kind of melts into the next. You don't remember what day of the week it is or what you usually did. So a sense of loss of structure. I think A more profound loss has been the loss of being with my sisters and brothers in the Lord. And we are God created us to be social beings. We need each other. I crave being with my brothers and sisters many times, and so I miss that. That's definitely a loss. Um, Loss of family time. Our family has been very, pretty much strict about the restrictions we've placed on ourselves. And we've missed a lot of wonderful family get togethers. And they've all been kind to us and, called us. And we've talked on the front porch and in the backyard and just occasionally socially distant. But we've missed that so much. And I'm thankful that we're reaching a time in which some in the church are able to start meeting again together.
Lynn, do you
I
want
would,
to add anything to that?
yes. I would say that one of Joy's big losses that she didn't mention is that she, with me being home all the time, she's lost a lot of freedom and free time. But anyway, other losses,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's not an easy thing to adjust to. She's
Th-
nice about it and couldn't be more wonderful about it. But I know that has to be hard for her and probably for any person. For me, some other losses I've experienced, I've had some health issues throughout the summer. I've had these weird temperature spikes that are completely unrelated to COVID. I've been tested a number of times and trying to deal with those and figure those out. And then at the end of August, I retired from full-time teaching at Oklahoma Christian after more than 50 years of teaching, and all of that kind of coming together has been difficult. It really has been, and I'm really thankful that I have faith in the Lord to help me through it, and to be thankful and grateful to Him for the many years that He gave me in the classroom. But those have been challenging losses for me personally.
Yeah, and retiring after that amount of service would normally mean some great events and probably some roastings from the Bible faculty as well, as a tribute to your service there. And those haven't been able to happen probably in the ways that we would have hoped.
I would love to get roasted.
I'm going to archive that quote and make sure and bring it out when the pandemic's over. And I'm sure there's some people who would oblige.
I will deny that I ever said it.
Okay. Talk to me about you've mentioned a little bit the losses related to church, but talk about how you've been connected to your church family during this time, how you've done worship, how all that's gone.
Well, we've had some wonderful experiences. Josh, truly, your work with our Bible classes is so helpful. And I just appreciate how you ever express it for sure. I think it's sort of been in stages. This summer when everybody was meeting in the parking lot, or many people were, we didn't get out in the lawn chairs like they did, but we sat in our car and we could see all our brothers and sisters there, and we could hear the sermon and feel, I think, a lot more connected, not so isolated. So that was a good thing. We've been able to participate in some church projects, where we took gifts to our frontline heroes and heroines in the community, and when we took gifts to some of the seniors in our congregation to let them know we remember them. And and today, and in this particular month, uh, actually for a few months, Jan Hannon and I have been facilitating a group of 18 women in a weekly Bible study at the building where we wear a mask and we socially distance. And so that's been a good thing.
Well, we have been worshiping online, and that is a real blessing. I have no complaints about Zoom or virtual things. That is just a blessing. If we hadn't had that, I can't imagine how isolated we would all feel. And we're very grateful to you. I know that you personally, Josh, have been a key person in making all of the electronics work from the very beginning. I know that there's a group of other people that have worked hard that have assisted, but I know that from the very beginning, you have been a key part of that. Now, other things that I've tried to do with our Bible class from the very beginning, I ask people to write daily devotionals. And at the very beginning, we had a very good response to that, in which a number of people wrote daily devotionals, most of whom were class members. Some of you wrote some of the other ministers, a few of the elders, and some other people did. And then we would send those out. Judith Turner is wonderful in our class to keep everybody informed what's going on by means of email. And she would send those devotionals out. And then after several months of doing that, we needed a change. So then we changed to doing devotionals focused on the Gospel of Mark. And after we ran through a number of those, then we are currently doing favorite Bible verses. Again, sending those out to the class members. And the next thing that we'll do is asking class members to write prayers that we will send to each other. But those are just some ways that we can stay connected now, given the limitations that we have. And we're just thankful. We've also been involved in Q Group and other, various meetings of various activities, all of those through virtual means. And it is a blessing to be able to do those that way. So no, it's not the same as being in person with people, but just like this video, we're able to see each other, talk to each other, interact. And that is so much better than just having to sit alone in our homes.
Yeah, we've all done a lot of sitting alone in the past several months, haven't we? So yes, I am grateful that we can still connect. So talk to me about how you have seen God at work, even in a very difficult year.
Well, he has provided, as I've just said, he has provided these electronic means by which we can interact. He's provided good information on how we can stay safe by masking, by social distancing, by not getting into large groups, by the many things that we know are, until the vaccine came along, that we could do. And of course, I know that as grateful as we are to the medical community and the research community for developing a vaccine, we give the knowledge and the wisdom of how to do that to the Lord himself. And we thank the Lord for providing this vaccine now that maybe a degree of safety can start to emerge.
This may sound a little bit strange, but in some ways, I think I needed a difficult year. I think I was just a little too complacent and comfortable and secure in my lifestyle. And I think what God has helped me to do during this period is to see the condition and the tragedy of the world more clearly than I believe I've ever seen it in my life. And it's been heart-wrenching. It has been heart-wrenching to see the hardships and the suffering and the tragedy of this world. I mean, 2 million people have died. And in the United States, 400,000 have died, probably 500,000 before we get to tame this virus, if we do get to do that. And millions more all over the world are suffering. They've left their homelands. They're trying to escape disease and racial prejudice, and they're just suffering. We see these pictures of these squalid refugee camps. And I'm thankful God has let me see those things, because it has really moved me and touched my heart in a way that I think I needed. I think God has provided peace for us on many, many days during this period of some isolation, a great feeling of peace. And then there have been days I just felt like crying, and I did cry. And I think God helped me to get past that feeling too. And not just for myself, I was crying about other people too, and for the millions of people that are suffering far more than we are.
And God is always there. I've had to remind myself many times, no matter how bleak things may seem or how difficult things are at the time, that doesn't mean that the Lord isn't there. In fact, we need to remember that even more then and rely on Him as a source of strength. And time and time again, I remember the descriptions that David gave of the Lord for him in the book of Psalms when he calls the Lord his rock. And I think of not just a little rock you might hold in your hand, but a massive boulder, a massive rock that nothing can move, that it's always there, it doesn't change. And David calls him a rock, a fortress, a stronghold, a shield. And I remind myself that the Lord is there regardless of how difficult things are. And it really does help.
Well, He's with us, just like the Holy Spirit is.
Yes.
He's not standing off away from us, but He's right here with us to encourage us and comfort us and convict us if we need to be.
Well, let me end with this question for you. Let's look ahead. What are some things you are hopeful about in the next year or so?
Well, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that we will look at a lot of the things that we've done in our own lives and maybe even our church programs with new lives. And I hope we won't feel so wedded to what we've always done as what would God want us to do. I think in my own heart, I really want to become more active in terms of responding to people's needs. It's just so easy as a church member to kind of stand back a little bit and say, things are really terrible out there in the world. I sure am glad that I have the answers. And as we well know,
No one has all the answers to this. In fact, it's probably a big waste of time to try to find the answers, easy answers, I should say. But I think the answer for me as a Christian is just to be more active in serving and caring about other people.
Well, one of my main hopes is that the Lord, even though we don't deserve it, that the Lord will grant to us enough healing and enough progress against this terrible virus that we will be able to fully get back together as a church in every way. Because as an elder, I'm very concerned, as the other elders are, about people whose faith may be suffering during this time and who may be prone to fall away. And of course, nobody wants that. So one of my great hopes is that the Lord will allow us to get back to normal enough that can be overcome, that we can regain a connection with each other, and that we can feel the strength of each other. And just pray that will come and that we will all be able to do better, and that in the process, we will not forget that He is the reason why whatever good comes is from Him.
Lynn and Joy, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I know people are glad to see you and hear from you. Thank you for your perspective on what the year has been like. Thank you for what you do to serve the church and the community.
Thank you, Josh, for having us.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation. Remember, you're welcome to leave a comment or a greeting for the McMillons down in the comments, whether you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube. We'll make sure those get passed on. So if you're watching this, say hello. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next week for another installment of God at Work.